We visualize Kyivan Rus as a traditional state with clear borders and a central government. But the historical record describes something much more fluid. The image of a monolithic power, complete with a central bureaucracy and an organized army, is an optical illusion. It is a modern concept projected backward onto a landscape that didn't use those rules. This state was largely constructed in the 19th century by historians like Nikolai Karamzin. Working under imperial decree, they designed a narrative of historical succession to provide the Russian Empire with a prestigious ancient pedigree. Strip away those 19th century layers, and Rus reveals itself as a network of nodes operating at the intersection of different civilizations. To understand what this network really was, we have to look at its mask, how its identity changed depending on which neighbor was looking at it. To the Scandinavians, it was Gardariki, not a country, but a logistics chain of fortified trade hubs along the eastern route. Here, power rested on military force and contracts, not royal lineage. It functioned like a corporate enterprise. The Byzantine Greeks saw something else entirely. To Constantinople, Rus was an archontia, a dangerous, wild periphery that needed to be managed. Byzantine integrated this threat through religion, treating the region as the eparchy of Rosia. It was a spiritual province whose autonomy was defined mostly by how far it sat from the center of the world. For the Vikings, Rus was a logistical tool. For the Greeks, a cultural buffer zone. In neither view was it a centralized nation-state. The Arab East viewed Al-Rus as a specialized military trade caste. They noted that these people didn't farm the land. They focused exclusively on extracting resources and the trade of local captives. Islamic geographers saw no central capital. Instead, they documented three distinct and equal centers of power. Western Europe attempted a different approach, viewing the region as Regnum Rusiae. They tried to bring it into the Latin system, even crowning Danilo Halitsky as a king. But these Western integration projects were eventually cut short by the arrival of a power from the steppe. Under the Mongols, Rus was transformed into an ulus, a fiscal province of the horde. It was divided into administrative grids designed for the efficient collection of taxes and recruits for a Khan who viewed himself as the only sovereign. Rus persisted by shifting its form as a Viking trade network, a Byzantine eparchy, and a Mongol tax district, proving its core nature was a flexible network rather than a rigid state. Modern scholars often classify Rus as a complex chiefdom, a networked early state that lacked a hard vertical hierarchy but maintained high levels of adaptability. But how did the people within this network define themselves when they weren't looking through a foreign lens? They used the concept of the arc. They believed Rus was a latecomer nation that hadn't inherited the ancient bureaucracies of Rome or Greece, giving them a unique, purely spiritual role in the world. This tied into the middle of the earth concept. Chroniclers believed the spiritual center of the world had migrated from Jerusalem through Constantinople and finally shifted to Kyiv. This belief took physical form in the construction of the Golden Gates. They weren't just a fortification. They were a monument to Kyiv's status as the new center of the world. This led to the image of the city on a hill, golden-domed Kyiv on the Peshers kites, intended to lead the world through its spiritual example. Internally, Rus was defined by sacred geography and community bonds, not the mechanics of a state apparatus. The image of Rus as a centralized gosadarstvo or state simply did not exist while the network was active. The vertical power and bureaucracy we associate with that region were actually inherited by Moscow from the Golden Horde's administrative system. Moscow later reassigned the roots of that horde-style statehood to Kyiv. By claiming a Kievan lineage through their bureaucratic empire, they created a myth of historical continuity that masked their actual origins. The 19th century imperial lens was designed to hide this reality, but by looking at the true historical perspectives, the corporation, the ark, and the city on the hill, we can finally see Rus without the imperial distortion.